The sound of soft and wistful music percolating through the drawing-room door as I approached did nothing to brighten the general outlook, and when I went in and saw Madeline Bassett seated at the piano, drooping on her stem a goodish deal, the sight nearly caused me to turn and leg it. However, I fought down the impulse and started things off with a tentative, "What ho?" The observation elicited no immediate response. She had risen, and for perhaps half a minute stood staring at me in a sad sort of way, like the Mona Lisa on one of those mornings when the sorrows of the world had been coming over the plate a bit too fast for her. Finally, just as I was thinking I'd better try to fill in with something about the weather, she spoke. "Bertie." It was, however, only a flash in the pan. She blew a fuse, and silence supervened again. "Bertie." No good. Another washout. I was beginning to feel the strain a bit. We had had one of these deaf-mutes getting-together sessions before at Brinkley Court in the summer, but on that occasion I had been able to ease things along by working on a bit of stage business during the awkward gaps in the conversation. Our previous chat, as you may or possibly may not recall, had taken place in the Brinkley dining room in the presence of a cold collation, and it had helped a lot, being in a position to bound forward at intervals with a curried egg or a cheese straw. In the absence of these foodstuffs, we were thrown back a good deal on straight staring, and this always tends to embarrass. Her lips parted. I saw that something was coming to the surface. A couple of gulps, and she was off to a good start. "Bertie, I wanted to see you. I asked you to come because I wanted to say, I wanted to tell you, Bertie, my engagement to Augustus is at an end." "Yes." "You knew?" "Oh, rather. He told me." "Then you know why I asked you to come here. I wanted to say—" "Yes." "That I am willing—" "Yes." "To make you happy." She appeared to be held up for a moment by a slight return of the old tonsil trouble, but after another brace of gulps she got it out. "I will be your wife, Bertie." I suppose that after this most chaps would have thought it scarcely worthwhile to struggle against the Inev, but I had a dash at it. With such vital issues at stake, one would have felt a chump if one had left any stone unturned. "Awfully decent of you," I said civilly. "Deeply sensible of the honour and what not, but have you thought? Have you reflected? Don't you feel you're being a bit rough on poor old Gussie?" "What? After what happened this evening?" I wanted to talk to you about that. I always think, don't you, that it is as well on these occasions, before doing anything drastic, to have a few words with a seasoned man of the world and get the real lowdown. You wouldn't like later on to have to start wringing your hands and saying, 'Oh, if only I'd known.' In my opinion, the whole thing should be re-examined with a view to threshing out. If you care to know what I think, you're wronging Gussie." "Wronging him? When I saw with my own eyes—" "But you haven't got the right angle. Let me explain." "There can be no explanation. We will not talk about it any more, Bertie. I have blotted Augustus from my life. Until tonight I saw him only through the golden mist of love and thought him the perfect man. This evening he revealed himself as what he really is, a satyr. But that's what I'm driving at. That's just why you're making your bloomer, you see. We will not talk about it any more. But please—" I tuned out. You can't make any headway with that tout comprendre, c'est tout pardonner stuff if the girl won't listen. She turned the bean away, no doubt to hide a silent tear, and there ensued a brief interval, during which she swabbed the eyes with a pocket handkerchief, and I, averting my gaze, dipped the beak into a jar of potpourri which stood on the piano. Presently she took the air again. "It is useless, Bertie. I know, of course, why you are speaking like this. It is that sweet, generous nature of yours. There are no lengths to which you will not go to help a friend, even though it may mean the wrecking of your own happiness. But there is nothing you can say that will change me. I have finished with Augustus. From tonight he will be merely a memory that will grow fainter and fainter through the years as you and I draw ever closer together. You will help me to forget. With you beside me, I shall be able in time to exorcise Augustus's spell. And now I suppose I'd better go and tell Daddy." I started. I could still see Pop Bassett's face when he had thought that he was going to draw me for a nephew. It would be a bit thick, I felt, while he was still quivering to the roots of the soul at the recollection of that hair's breadth escape, to tell him that I was about to become his son-in-law. I was not fond of poor Bassett, but one has one's humane instincts. "Oh, my aunt," I said, "don't do that." "But I must. He will have to know that I am to be your wife. He is expecting me to marry Augustus 3 weeks from tomorrow." I chewed this over. I saw what she meant, of course. You've got to keep your father posted about these things. You can't just let it all slide and have the poor old egg rolling up to church in a topper and a buttonhole to find that the wedding is off and nobody bothered to mention it to him. "Well, don't tell him tonight," I urged. "Let him simmer a bit. He's just had a pretty testing shock." "A shock?" "Yes, he's not quite himself." A concerned look came into her eyes, causing them to bulge a trifle. "So I was right. I thought he was not himself when I met him coming out of the library just now. He was wiping his forehead and making odd little gasping noises, and when I asked him if anything was the matter, he said that we all had our cross to bear in this world, but that he supposed he ought not to complain because things were not so bad as they might have been. I couldn't think what he meant, but then he said he was going to have a warm bath and take 3 aspirins and go to bed. What was it? What had happened?" I saw that to reveal the full story would be to complicate an already fairly well complicated situation. I touched, accordingly, on only one aspect of it. "Stiffy has just told him she wants to marry the curate." "Stephanie? The curate, Mr. Pinker?" "That's right, old Stinker Pinker, and it turned him up a good deal. He appears to be a bit allergic to curates." She was breathing emotionally, like the dog Bartholomew just after he had finished eating the candle. But, yes? But does Stephanie love Mr. Pinker?" "Oh, rather. No question about that." "But then—" I saw what was in her mind and nipped in promptly. "Then there can't be anything between her and Gussie, you are going to say?" "Exactly. This proves it, doesn't it? That's the very point I was trying to work the conversation round to from the start. But he— Yes, I know he did, but his motives in doing so were as pure as the driven snow. Purer, if anything. I'll tell you all about it, and I'm prepared to give you 100 to 8 that when I've finished you will admit that he was to be more pitied than censured." Give Bertram Wooster a good, clear story to unfold, and he can narrate it well. Starting at the beginning with Gussie's aghastness at the prospect of having to make a speech at the wedding breakfast, I took her step by step through the subsequent developments, and I may say that I was as limpid as Dammit. By the time I had reached the final chapter, I had her a bit squiggle-eyed, but definitely wavering on the edge of conviction. "And you say Stephanie has hidden this notebook in Daddy's cow creamer?" "Plum spang in the cow creamer." "But I never heard such an extraordinary story in my life." "Bizarre, yes, but quite capable of being swallowed, don't you think? What you have got to take into consideration is the psychology of the individual. You may say that you wouldn't have a psychology like Stiffy's if you were paid for it, but it's hers all right." "You sure you're not making this all up, Bertie?" "Why on earth?" "I know your altruistic nature so well." "Oh, I see what you mean. No, rather not. This is the straight official stuff. Don't you believe it?" "I shall if I find the notebook where you say Stephanie put it. I think I had better go and look." "I would." "I will. Fine." She hurried out, and I sat down at the piano and began to play Happy Days Are Here Again with one finger. I would have preferred to get outside a curried egg or two, for the strain had left me weak. But, as I have said, there were no curried eggs present. I was profoundly braced. I felt like some marathon runner who, after sweating himself to the bone for hours, at length breasts the tape. The only thing that kept my bracedness from being absolutely unmixed with the lurking thought that in this ill-omened house there was always a chance of something unforeseen suddenly popping up to mar the happy ending. I somehow couldn't see Totley Towers throwing in the towel quite so readily as it appeared to be doing. It must, I felt, have something else up its sleeve. Nor was I wrong. When Madeline Bassett returned a few minutes later, there was no notebook in her hand. She reported a total inability to discover so much as a trace of a notebook in the spot indicated, and I gathered from her remarks she had ceased entirely to be a believer in that notebook's existence. I don't know if you have ever had a bucket of cold water right in the mazzard. I received one once in my boyhood, through the agency of a groom with whom I had to have some difference of opinion. That same feeling of being knocked endways came over me now. I was at a loss and nonplussed. As Constable Oates had said, the first move the knowledgeable bloke makes when rummy goings-on are in progress is to try to spot the motive. But what Stiffy's motive could be for saying the notebook was in the cow creamer when it wasn't, I was unable to fathom. With a firm hand, this girl had pulled my leg. But why? That was the point that baffled. Why had she pulled my leg? I did my best. You sure you really looked? Perfectly sure. I mean, carefully. Very carefully. Well, Stiffy certainly saw it was there. Indeed. How do you mean, indeed? If you want to know what I mean, I do not believe there ever was a notebook. You don't credit my story? No, I do not. Well, after that, of course, there didn't seem much to say. I may have said, oh, or something along those lines, I'm not sure. But if I did, that let me out. I edged to the door and pushed off in a sort of daze, pondering. You know how it is when you ponder. You become absorbed, concentrated. Outside phenomena do not register on the... what is it? I suppose I was fully halfway along the passage leading to my bedroom before the beastly row that was going on there penetrated to my consciousness, causing me to stop, look, and listen. This row to which I refer was a kind of banging row, as if somebody were banging on something, and I had scarcely said to myself, what ho, a banger, when I saw who this banger was. It was Roderick Spode, and what he was banging on was the door of Gus's bedroom. As I came up, he was in the act of delivering another buffet on the woodwork. The spectacle had an immediate tranquillising effect on my jangled nervous system. I felt a new man, and I'll tell you why. Everyone, I suppose, has experienced the sensation of comfort and relief, which comes when you are being given the runaround by forces beyond your control, and suddenly discover someone on whom you can work off the pent-up feelings. The merchant prince, when things are going wrong, takes it out on the junior clerk. The junior clerk goes and ticks off the office boy. The office boy kicks the cat steps down the street to find a smaller cat, which in its turn, the interview concluded, starts scouring the countryside for a mouse. It was so with me now. Snooted to bursting point by Pop Bassets and Madeline Bassets and Stiffy Bings and whatnot, and hounded like the dickens by remorseless fate, I found solace in the thought that I could still slip it across Roderick Spode. Spode! I cried sharply. He paused with lifted fist and turned an inflamed eye in my direction. Then, as he saw who had spoken, the red light died out of his eyes. He wilted obsequiously. Well, Spode, what is all this? Oh, hello, Wooster. Nice evening. I proceeded to work off the pent-up F's. Never mind what sort of an evening it is, I said. Upon my word, Spode, this is too much. This is just that little bit above the odds which compels a man to take drastic steps. But, Wooster, what do you mean by disturbing the house with this abominable uproar? Have you forgotten already what I told you about checking this disposition of yours to run amok like a raging hippopotamus? I should have thought that after what I said you would have spent the remainder of the evening curled up with a good book. But no, I find you renewing your efforts to assault and batter my friends. I must warn you, Spode, that my patience is not inexhaustible. But, Wooster, you don't understand. What don't I understand? You don't know the provocation I have received from this pop-eyed finknottle. A wistful look came into his face. I must break his neck. You are not going to break his neck. Well, shake him like a rat. Nor shake him like a rat. But he says I'm a pompous ass. When did Gussie say that to you? He didn't exactly say it. He wrote it. Look, here it is. Before my bulging eyes, he produced from his pocket a small, brown, leather-covered notebook. Harking back to Archimedes just once more, Jeeves's description of him discovering the principle of displacement, though brief, had made a deep impression on me, bringing before my eyes a very vivid picture of what must have happened on that occasion. I had been able to see the man testing the bathwater with his toe, stepping in, immersing the frame. I had accompanied him in spirit through all the subsequent formalities, the soaping of the loofah, the shampooing of the head, the burst of song, and then, abruptly, as he climbs towards the high note, there is silence. His voice has died away. Through the steaming suds, you can see that his eyes are glowing with a strange light. The loofah falls from his grasp, disregarded. He utters a triumphant cry, "Got it, what ho! The principle of displacement!" And out he leaps, feeling like $1 million. In precisely the same manner did the miraculous appearance of this notebook affect me. There was that identical moment of stunned silence, followed by the triumphant cry, and I have no doubt that, as I stretched out a compelling hand, my eyes were glowing with a strange light. "Give me that book, Spode." "Yes, I would like you to look at it, Wooster. Then you will see what I mean. I came across this," he said, in a rather remarkable way. "The thought crossed my mind that Sir Watkin might feel happier if I were to take charge of that cow creamer of his. There have been a lot of burglaries in the neighbourhood." He added hastily, "A lot of burglaries, and those French windows are never really safe, so I went to the collection room and took it out of its case. I was surprised to hear something bumping about inside it. I opened it and found this book. Look," he said, pointing a banana-like finger over my shoulder. "There is what he says about the way I eat asparagus." I think Roderick Spode's idea was that we were going to pore over the pages together. When he saw me slip the volume into my pocket, I sensed a feeling of bereavement. "Are you going to keep the book, Wooster?" "I am." "But I wanted to show it to Sir Watkin. There's a lot about him in it, too." "We will not cause Sir Watkin needless pain, Spode." "Perhaps you're right. Then I'll be getting on with breaking this door down." "Certainly not," I said sternly. "All you do is pop off." "Pop off?" "Pop off. Leave me, Spode. I would be alone." I watched him disappear round the bend, then rapidly rapped vigorously on the door. "Gussie." No reply. "Gussie, come out." "I'm dashed if I do." "Come out, you ass. Wooster speaking." Even this did not produce immediate results. He explained later that he was under the impression that it was Spode giving a cunning imitation of my voice. But eventually I convinced him that this was indeed the boyhood friend and no other, and there came the sound of furniture being dragged away, and presently the door opened and his head emerged cautiously, like that of a snail taking a look round after a thunderstorm. In the emotional scene which followed, I need not go into detail. You will have witnessed much the same sort of thing in the pictures, when the United States Marines arrive in the nick of time to relieve the beleaguered garrison. I may sum it up by saying that he fawned upon me. He seemed to be under the impression that I had worsted Roderick Spode in personal combat, and it wasn't worthwhile to correct it. Pressing the notebook into his hand, I sent him off to show it to Madeline, and proceeded to my room. Jeeves was there, messing about with some professional task. It had been my intention, on seeing this man again, to put him through it in no uncertain fashion, for having subjected me to the tense, nervous strain of my recent interview with Pop Bassett. But now I greeted him with a cordial smile rather than the acid glare. After all, I told myself, his scheme had dragged home the gravy, and in any case this was no moment for recriminations. Wellington didn't go about ticking people off after the Battle of Waterloo. He slapped their backs and stood them drinks. "Aha, Jeeves, you're there, are you?" "Yes, sir." "Well, Jeeves, you may start packing the effects." "Sir?" "For the homeward trip. We leave tomorrow." "You are not proposing, then, to extend your stay at Totley Towers?" I laughed, one of my gay jolly ones. "Don't ask foolish questions, Jeeves. Is Totley Towers a place where people extend their stays if they haven't got to? And there is now no longer any necessity for me to linger on the premises. My work is done. We leave first thing tomorrow morning. Start packing, therefore, so that we shall be in a position to get off the mark without an instant's delay. It won't take you long." "No, sir, there are merely the 2 suitcases." He hauled them from beneath the bed and opened the larger of the brace, began to sling coats and things into it, while I, seating myself in the armchair, proceeded to put him abreast of recent events. "Well, Jeeves, that plan of yours worked all right." "I am most gratified to hear it, sir." I don't say that the scene won't haunt me in my dreams for some little time to come. I make no comment on your having let me in for such a thing. I merely state that it proved a winner. And Uncle's blessing came popping out like a cork out of a champagne bottle, and Stiffy and Stinker are headed for the altar rails with no more fences ahead. Extremely satisfactory, sir. Then Sir Watkin's reactions were as we had anticipated. If anything, more so. I don't know if you have ever seen a stout bark buffeted by the waves. No, sir, my visits to the seaside have always been made in clement weather. Well, that was what he resembled on being informed by me that I wanted to become his nephew by marriage. He looked and behaved like the wreck of the Hesperus, you remember? It sailed the wintry sea, and the skipper had taken his little daughter to bear him company. Yes, sir. Blue were her eyes as the fairy flax, her cheeks like the dawn of day, and her bosom was white as the hawthorn buds that opened in the month of May. Quite. Well, as I was saying, he reeled beneath the blow, and let the water in at every seam. And when Stiffy appeared and told him that it was all a mistake, and that the promesso sposo was in reality all Stinker Pinker, his relief knew no bounds. He instantly gave his sanction to their union. Could hardly get the words out quick enough. Why am I wasting time telling you all this, Jeeves? A mere side issue. Here's the real front-page stuff. Here's the news that will shock the Chancellor is. I've got the notebook. Indeed, sir? Yes, absolutely got it. I found Spode with it and took it away from him, and Gussie is even now showing it to Miss Bassett and clearing his name of the stigma that rested upon it. I shouldn't be surprised if at this very moment they were locked in a close embrace. A consummation devoutly to be wished, sir. You said it, Jeeves. Then you have nothing to cause you further concern, sir. Nothing. The relief is stupendous. I feel as if a great weight had been rolled from my shoulders. I could dance and sing. I think there can be no question that exhibiting that notebook will do the trick. None, I should imagine, sir. I say, Bertie, said Gussie, trickling in at this juncture with the air of one who had been passed through a ringer, a most frightful thing has happened. The wedding's off.